folks, this is Alan from Glottal Scot speaking, and in this video today we're going to cover 10 top tips that we hope will help you in starting to learn a language. Now, we know that you will all be coming from different levels of experience and background. Perhaps some of you have learned a language before, or maybe you're completely new to it. It really doesn't matter. You can learn a language. It's all just a matter of finding out what works for you. Now, perhaps you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm just not gifted in learning languages. Well, just stop right there. The fact that you're saying or even thinking that shows that you can speak at least one language, your own. And researchers have found that innate ability is only one tiny small part of the jigsaw of successful language learning. You can do it, and we will help set you on the path. Okay, so you know which language you want to learn. Where do we begin? Well, step one is to define your objectives. In this step, we want you to have a think about what you want to achieve in learning your chosen language. Do you want to be able to speak conversationally with a foreign friend? To write letters to an acquaintance? To improve your skills for work? To live in the country where they speak this language? Your objectives will be entirely personal to you, and you can either write down a few notes on the back of an envelope, or you can write them down in detail. It really doesn't matter, as long as you write them down. But two main question words are important here. These are what are your main objectives, and just as importantly, have a think about why these are important to you. Then write down your reasons. Finally, in setting these objectives, use the SMARTER criteria. Your objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, i.e. have a time limit, and able to be evaluated, then re-evaluated after these set time limits. Within these criteria, you can make a very successful start. Now is the time to get yourself organised. You have your objectives, but now we need to organise our lives to fit these objectives in. You don't have to go through a lot of upheaval. Language learning can be slotted in to work with your family or social life quite easily. It just requires a bit of creative thought. But here we want you to think about other question words. How can I organise my time better to learn a language? When can I do it? And importantly, where? So make sure you organise a time and a place where you can study that suits your needs. Remember, don't treat this as a memorisation challenge. It's just like learning to drive. You're developing a skill, so it takes time and patience. Make sure you review your previous work and do it little and often. Planning is important, particularly at the early stage, as it sets up a structure in which you can thrive. So for this to work, you need a clear set of objectives. Remember the SMARTER criteria? Use these, and clarify the resources you will have, or will need, and then plan out a timescale. This can be quite specific in the early stages, perhaps week-by-week aims detailing what you need to work on. But for the future, set some milestones for what you want to achieve, say in 1 year's time. And if you're aiming for a high degree of fluency, 5 years' time. Taking time to plan your learning in the early stages will definitely help you for the future. Our next tip, and this is quite an important one, is to take risks. Now, we're not suggesting anything that will endanger your life here, but step out of your comfort zone once in a while. If you're hanging on to that beginner's book thinking that you need to know everything contained within it before you move on, then you'll never move on. Read some news articles on a foreign website or chat with native speakers in your area. Try not to be shy and use every opportunity you can to use the language, and you'll soon flourish. Another hugely important tip is to make the language relevant to you. So what are you interested in? Why are you learning this language? Is it for work, a holiday, interest in the culture or history of the country in which the language is spoken? Or perhaps your family are from there? Whatever you're interested in, try and find materials in the language that interest you, as you will pay greater attention to them. So, study the topics you enjoy. Make it personal, and also create your own sentences which have relevance to you, your life and interests. Just be relevant. Now, our next tip is that you need to be active and proactive, and this ties in with our earlier tip on taking risks too. It is vital that you take different approaches to your language learning. As we said, find a local speaker and meet up with them for a chat, listen to broadcasts on TV, radio or online in the target language, or if you're into social media, find groups of speakers online with similar interests and befriend them online, so you can type to them in their language. While you're at it, make sure you friend us too on Facebook and Twitter. Now, our next tip is to reflect on your learning. There is no point going on with an approach that isn't working for you, or one that is turning you off the language. So it's important that you find out what works or doesn't work for you. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to learning a language. Also, try to vary your tactics from time to time to keep you on your toes and your mind engaged. And finally, think creatively about how you can learn better. Everyone learns at different rates and in different ways. Never compare yourself or your progress to anyone else. It will work for you. Next, record your progress, as this allows you to look back and see how far you've come and what works or what didn't work. It will also allow you to refine your learning and fill up any gaps in your knowledge. Now, you could do this in the form of a learning diary or blog in order to chart your progress. Just find a way of being able to record your milestones and see how you're progressing. Now, as you go along, make sure you celebrate your achievements too. We all have a tendency to focus on the things we don't know and ignore the things we do. And finally, don't get disheartened if you find that your learning reaches a point where it feels like you're mentally wading through treacle. It happens to us all. And all it requires is for you to shake up your approach a little bit and engage in fresh materials that will work with your interests. To be successful in languages, we really need to use a variety of approaches to strengthen the core skills of speaking, writing, listening and reading. It's all too easy to focus exclusively on one of these, but a nice bit of balance is required between all four. In the early stages, I would say that more input is required from listening and reading so that you assimilate more of the structures and start to understand how the language should be expressed. But that is not to say that you should avoid speaking and writing entirely. On the contrary, as soon as you feel comfortable with these, you should strive to balance all these four elements to suit your needs. Most important of all is to work with the elements with which you are most comfortable, but don't neglect the others. In using these multiple approaches, you will find that your learning improves dramatically if you engage all the senses. These include the obvious ones of sight and sound, but touch, movement, smell and taste are little used, but should be. Suppose, for example, you're learning about different types of food for your chosen language. Prepare a meal using them, preferably following a recipe in that language too, and you should find that the vocabulary sinks in better and will be easier to recall using this multisensory approach. In short, be creative with all your senses. Our final suggestion, and the most important one of all, is to enjoy the process. Enjoyment should be the top priority in all aspects of your learning, as it will make it sink in better. That's not to say it will be easy, but you will derive a lot of satisfaction from overcoming what seems initially insurmountable, and the benefits that come from knowing a second language are manifold. Also, this is very much a lifelong process and not a means to an end. You will never fully know the language, just as with your native tongue there will be words you encounter that you don't know. Still, it's a skill that will stay with you for all your life and benefit you immensely. For more language learning tips, visit us at www.glottalscot.com or like us on our Facebook at www.facebook.com/glottalscot. See you later.